I had mentors, key mentors at an early point in my life. I always mention my mother because she was there for me for that. Whenever I had a question, whatever it was about, she was going to answer it, not just to the best of her abilities, but with the Word of God.
Today, we're meeting Marcus, a young man that shares his story from his childhood where he had a really close relationship with God even at a young age. And then through his teen years, he went through some struggle phases to be an incredible leader in God's church today. I know you're going to love his story. Welcome to Tea Talks. Marcus, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to come to do this video podcast with me.
Thank you for having me.
I have met you, I think it's been a couple of years now, right?
Yeah.
And we worked together. We did worship together for a retreat.
Yeah.
So it's been a great pleasure working with you. So I was really excited for you to come to this podcast so I could talk, get to know you a little better. And so everybody else also could get to know you too. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with you. Tell us who is Marcus?
Well, a little bit about myself. I've grown up in a small town, small church, past tense. We've grown a little since then. I've pretty much been in the same church, in the same town, the majority of my life. I moved out to Virginia for a couple years back in the day, and then came back to my home church, pretty much.
So you grew up in this small town. You were already part of a church. Your whole family?
My close nucleus. We have people in the family as always that decide.
Sure, but parents, siblings.
Yeah, we're all part of the same church.
So you pretty much had a Christian upbringing? Yes. How was not like your family, but your spiritual journey?
I was one of those kids that you run into that are strangely keen about spiritual stuff.
So you always liked it?
Yes, it was always very real to me. I guess I understood, especially about the shame paradigm.
Shame?
Very early on.
Oh, wow.
And being ashamed and disgusted with sin and all that stuff.
Ashamed and disgust with sin, not with yourself. No, because a lot of people, the problem with shame is that they feel shamed.
Mm-hmm.
You were ashamed of sin and you didn't want to be part of it.
At a very young age, I felt the gospel was very real to me. Jesus was very real to me. The Bible was very real to me.
Wow.
It wasn't, I asked to be baptized, I think I was 6.
Wow.
They obviously postponed my baptism for a few years. But again, I was not asking just out of curiosity,
A lot of kids just do it because the friends are doing it.
Well, most of my friends were not doing it.
We're not doing it.
No. And I guess that's just where it starts, being introduced to God very early on in the home and making that mine.
Got it. So you were very young when you made it yours. That is very, very admirable. The dream of every parent. Did you, maybe in your teen years, did you ever had a time that you questioned, do I believe in this? Do I believe in God? Or you just didn't have that?
No.
You did. So tell me more about that.
Maybe not so much questioning God in the Bible, because like I said, very early on, I had those questions early on as well. Mm-hmm. We're talking like maybe 9, around that age. And the good thing for me, which I think has set my experience apart from a lot of the experiences that I hear my friends, it's the fact that I had mentors who not only had a personal experience with God, they had struggled with their faith and they were unashamed to talk about that topic.
That is wonderful.
So
we're going to talk more about mentors, but I want to put that to the side for now because I want to get to know you a little more. You skipped the struggle. I want to hear.
I was going there.
You're going there. Sorry.
So as a kid, when I reached my teenage years, I didn't have that much of a struggle perhaps with, do I believe this is factual? I know that this is the facts, but perhaps interest in things that it was like, well, I was told this is bad, right? I was raised very strict, right? So how bad is it?
Got it.
Because they say it's bad. And from what I've heard, they might have tried it. I have not. And I have friends and people I associate with which are doing it, and they seem fine. I'm going to test it out.
Got it.
I'm going to try for myself. Nothing extremely wild, relax, but definitely
out of your normal.
Out of my normal. Things that I didn't normally use for entertainment, let's say, especially that. Since, as I mentioned, I was raised pretty strict. I wasn't going to be able to get out and do certain things that other people could do.
Did the strictness didn't bother you?
At one point as a child, it did. Early teens, it did bother me because I'm like, why does everybody get to do whatever?
And I can't.
Why don't y'all let me do stuff?
Yes.
But I guess because I had, how do I put this? Because I made certain choices, right, outside of what I normally would do. And in my case, the consequences came very quickly. I was faced with those consequences. And I guess really what hurt me the most was not just that I hurt myself. When you do things wrong, you're going to hurt yourself. But really that I hurt other people. I ended up making decisions that I had a lot of people that trusted me. I still have a lot of people that trust me, and they love me to death. But during that period, they did, and I used that to my advantage. And then being able to look back after a couple of years and reflect and see that none of that was necessary. I really gained nothing more than a lot of pain and the weight in my mind of knowing what I did, because some of them didn't even find out what happened. But it was just...
You knew.
I understood. So this is why we stay away from A, B,
Yeah,
and C.
exactly. That's why my parents are trying to protect me.
And I guess for that reason, looking back now, they were strict, but they weren't all that strict. Because then I saw other people which were very strict in other areas, perhaps different than my parents. And, oh, so we were strict, but we weren't that strict. It's always one of those.
Got it. So you were going through your struggles, questioning religion, God. Should I try? You didn't question God, right? You question, can I do this? Can I not do that? What was the transition? Was there, from that event that you just mentioned, that you got the consequences very quickly?
Yeah.
What happened from there?
I guess it was one of those moments where you actually get to stop and think. As a young person, I felt all the energy in the world. I was ready to take on anything. I was going at it. And I feel like as though many times as young people, we have so much energy that older people maybe don't have. And that kind of causes them to have to reflect a lot more because they have to sit with themselves. And there came a moment when my entire friend group disbanded. Not for anything, it's just people moved out of the country. People went off to boarding school. And for a minute there, I was alone. I wasn't alone, but I was alone.
You lost your friends.
And I had to sit with myself and take a moment to reflect and recognize the consequences of the things that I had been doing. And the fact that just as I was doing, I have a little sister. I love my little sister to death, right?
I met her. She's a sweetheart.
And just thinking that somebody else could decide to make with her the decisions that I was deciding to make with other people. When that thought hit me for the first time, it broke me. It broke me completely. And from that moment onward, I was like, maybe we need to start making different choices. Maybe we need to go and apologize to some other people. And I believe the Holy Spirit works in different ways with different people. Sometimes I wish God were a little more rough with me, but he knows that under everything, despite the fact that I listen a lot and do everything, I'm a very rebellious person. Yeah.
I would never believe that.
Ask my mother. Yeah. We've grown out of it, but especially as a child, I was very defiant. So God, being a true father, he knows his children, right? So the way that he deals with me is like, no, he leads me slowly and gets me to realize it. He doesn't put force on me. He doesn't pressure me. It's like, no, it's fine. Here.
He guides you and allows you to make your choices.
Yes, because again, the fact that I realized what was going on didn't mean that I have to stop. But I thank God that I decided to. And with the disbanding of my friends, that also took away some of the people that I had been hurting. And I'm not going to lie, it was a tough 5 years because it was 5 years before I saw some of them in person again.
Wow.
And I felt so bad about it that I wanted to apologize in person. And those 5 years of just reflecting and having that thing over and over, and God would talk to them sometimes, but it's not the same as when you're in person. And being able to see them in person years later and just face to face be like, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that.
Specific things.
Yes. Because it's very easy to be vague, and I have an issue with that. So I'm sorry about something that possibly happened at some point that you don't know about. No, come in clean. Hey, listen, I took advantage of you in different areas, and I want to apologize for that. It took such a heavy weight off of my shoulders.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was that healing for you?
Yes. I could still, I'm not going to go too much into detail because I don't want to tear up. But especially one of those people, seeing them after that many years, I was out of words. I didn't know what to say. There was a welling up of emotions. And I'm a very emotional person, thanks to my mom. But I don't dwell on that too much, thanks to my dad. But it was just a mix of emotions of I finally get this opportunity.
Got it.
I can finally drop this load.
Yeah. I can see that you're extremely close to your family, because the way you say about your mom, dad, and your sister, you
Yeah,
guys must be very close. That is a very good feeling and wonderful.
I thank God greatly for my family.
So you went through that phase. How did that shaped your spiritual life afterwards?
I don't have to cover up so much anymore. For many years, it was all a front of I have my stuff together.
Got it.
I'm leading the church. Everything is good. Everything is nice. And being able to come clean about the fact that, no, I'm not perfect. You guys think I am.
So the times that you were struggling, you still put a face to
Yeah,
go to church.
yeah. Because again, even what I did do, since as I spoke about shame, when I was young, I understood shame about sin. Entering my teenage years, I started feeling ashamed of myself and my choices.
Got it.
And that's when it changed. And today I can openly speak about, well, I did that. This is what I'm currently struggling with.
It's part of your history. It's part of who you are today. You went through it and you overcame. That's how you say it, right?
And I would more say, not I went through it, but I'm going through it.
You're going through it.
Because many times I have to feel like we've reached that point. Oh, I'm beyond the struggle now. I've made it over. No, I'm still learning a lot of things. I still have, well, I'm going to be honest with you. Like I said, especially nowadays, or for these last couple of years, I've been struggling, maybe not struggling, I don't struggle with it, but just having issues with God doing things the way that he does. I know he's always right. I don't have any questions about that. It's still irritating.
God, do your way, but can your way be my way?
I understand I'm in the wrong, Lord, but could I be right? I'm just saying. And it's very real, especially having to wait on things that you wanted.
Yep. I am not very good at waiting room.
I've had to learn to wait. And I'm still very much struggling with letting go of control. He's been calling me out on full surrender. And for these last couple of years, you can have that, but I'm gonna hold on to this. And being able to talk about this and not feel like I need to cover that up. And I have all my spiritual life together. I am a leader, and I have young people that look up to me, and I need to have everything together because they need to know that they can also have everything together. No, you guys want to be with me? We're going to be friends. I'm going to be open with you.
So being able to be yourself, go through your struggles, your questions openly, it's been a relief for you.
Definitely.
Do you think, because you're in a Hispanic church, right?
Yes.
Do you think culturally was more pressure for you to have that mask on, or this was just something that was you?
It was something that was me. It came, so I have an easier time dealing with older people than younger people.
Interesting.
Yes, I am an old soul, but also old people function with a pattern. Mm-hmm. You've lived a life, you need to get that pattern.
That's the control that we were talking about.
So I can find old people's patterns really easily, and I know young people can too, right? It's a young people thing. So I can relate to young people, but it's easier to deal with old people for me.
Got it.
And I guess that's one of those things. As a young person, it's very easy if you know all the rules, if you know how everything works, to keep the mask on. As long as I do this, and don't get too close to that area, let's just not deal with those. They don't want to deal with it. And since I want to keep my mask on, I don't really want to deal with it either. So I don't know, I can't speak about English-speaking churches, but at least in my Hispanic church, as long as it looks like I had everything together, it worked out really well. It wasn't hard for me because I was mostly associating with old people. Then God, during that time when he was teaching me and I was going through the low, he also called me to work with young people, which I did not like because you got to be candid and upfront with young people. And I'm like, I can't be close to you and keep the mask on all the time. Maybe. And it was very hard.
God does those things, right?
Yeah.
Calling us to take you completely out of your comfort zone to do something that really challenged you.
Yes. And I still do genuinely believe children and perhaps young people are not my main calling. Maybe young people.
But maybe you had to go through that experience.
But I needed it. I needed to come to terms with the fact that something wasn't right and we needed to deal with that.
Hold it. Something wasn't right with you?
Yeah, because I'm saying this was during the time when I was coming to terms with the fact that the things that I was doing were wrong and that I needed to turn my life
And maybe working with the young people would help you out.
Yes, I feel like through them, God showed me a little bit of what the verse that says that we are open books to the world, because I had thought that I was a closed book, right? As long as the cover looks nice, everything's good. But then you go to the young people and they don't care about your cover. So you're going to open up, or can I go? I don't have time to waste with this.
It's so interesting because majority of the people that I'm talking to, they're all young adults. And basically their complaint is that how they cannot relate to the older generation, which is the completely opposite. And I was actually going to ask you questions about that. So you get along with the older generation better, but you're working with the younger generation.
Yes.
Or worked. You're still working with the younger generation?
Working.
So you're still working with the younger generation.
In a different way. But
so maybe we can get into that a little bit.
For sure.
What do you think are the struggles between the different generations, the different styles, the different ways of worship and communication? What do you see being the greatest challenges for young people?
So something I was thinking about earlier this week is what sadly is young people, we tend to focus on one thing, which is what's happening right now. We see the situation now, and that's good and that's necessary. Old people tend to focus on the way things should be. Young people tend to focus on the way things are, and that's okay. We need that bridge. When you only focus on the way that things should be and you overlook the way things are, you can't grow. You can't work towards what things should be. You're only going to create what looks right.
It's okay for you to envision something better as long as you understand the reality and work with that reality towards something better.
Exactly. And then for many of the young people, then we tend to focus on, well, this is the issue. This is where we're at. And it's like, yes, but where are we going? What is the ideal? You know?
Where do you want to go? Sometimes they don't like what we have, but they don't know where we're going, where they wanted to go.
Yes. So it is very important, and we require the Holy Spirit to be able to bring those two mindsets together, those focuses together.
What do you think are practical tips of how we can bring those things together?
First thing is awareness, which is something that we're trying to do here. There's a lot of unawareness.
Yes.
From both ends. Old people think that what they're doing is right. They're genuinely trying their best. And 75% of the time, they don't know what it is that they're doing wrong. They don't know what it is that they do that makes us want to back out.
That's true.
And in the same way, as young people, many times we have issues expressing what it is that we're having an issue with respectfully.
I don't think there's a single older member in the church that will say, we don't want to work with the young people. We don't want young people. They all want to.
Yes.
It's so interesting that it's literally like both sides are saying the same thing. They both want the same thing. But
we just don't know how.
That's exactly what you're saying. It's the lack of, hey, how do we communicate? How do we come together? Because I think they both want the same thing and they don't know how to do it.
And being open to struggles is a necessity, which many times it feels like we're afraid, especially from the young people's perspective, it feels like we're afraid of in the church. We don't want to deal with those issues. We're going to see things differently. And we have to be willing to sit down at the table and disagree respectfully.
Yes. And not only come and say, this is the way that needs to be done, but I like this way. What is your perspective? Because sometimes we can match the two without compromising principles. Because that is the biggest fear, right? We talked about a little bit of shame, but I think a great deal in churches is fear. What if I hand the keys to the young people and they go wild and they lower principles and it's going to go against the gospel, against the Bible? But that is not always the case. Sometimes it's different ways of delivering things, but getting the same result is still keeping the same principles.
Yes. And I can vouch for that. I'm not going to come here and make it sound like my church is, it's perfect. It's not. We have serious issues. But when it comes to that, at least in my experience, in what I can say, the church was very willing to set young people in action, to give us serious responsibilities. I was in my early teens when I was given my first official responsibility. Not just inviting them to participate in something. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about
only read the Bible verse of
and
the
then have
day.
the prayer.
Yeah.
No, an official responsibility. I became a deacon at 13 years of age.
Wow.
The youngest at the time. Then after me, they chose somebody even younger.
Being
They
a
showed me
seat
that
at
they
the
trusted
table.
me.
Mhm.
And not just a seat at the table, because here's the thing, sometimes you're seated at the table, but stay quiet.
You can sit at the table, but don't talk.
Sit at the table, take your food, eat.
I didn't mean that table, by the way. I meant
No?
the church board meetings
Oh.
and stuff like that.
They should bring food to the church board meetings.
I agree. Let's make that a rule.
Yes, but especially in my experience, when I was given the opportunity to be part of any committee or anything really, and I'm talking again, young age, I am not only sitting there so that they can say, "Oh, we had a young people in the." My opinion is expected and desired,
That's good.
and I can feel that because, trust me, young people can tell if you want them to talk or not. And when they put out their idea and you swing at their neck, they're gonna shut up.
And they're never gonna talk again.
Because ideally, even adults know nobody wants to sit in a board meeting. Nobody enjoys that. We don't have to lie to ourselves. Nobody wants to sit and talk and discuss all of these things. So if my opinion isn't even desired here, if it's not important, if you've got me here but you don't expect me to talk, I might as well not be here.
It's not like, oh, just because we have a young person, everything that the young person says we have to do it. That's not the point.
No.
But also taking considerations. Is it possible? It is not. And also, I think the people at the board needs to be sensitive to the idea that an older person can take rejection much easier than a younger person. You can't accept everything they say, but know how to reject it. If a young person is giving this crazy wild idea that for a fact is not going to work, ask questions. So how do you see that happens? And what resource, what time do you think? And with those questions, maybe the young person is going to come out and say, oh no, that wouldn't work.
And that's wisdom right there, knowing how to ask those questions.
Yes.
Not allowing, because a lot of the issues, not just in the church, this is issues in general, come from ego. As an old person, I have experience, you need to listen to me, period. Whatever I say is law.
And do you think lack of patience? We need to do this in a hurry. We don't have time. And I don't have time to be talking to you here. And
explaining to you why you're wrong. We need to train them up. I was trained up.
That's where the topic of mentorship comes in. And let's go on that. How important do you think that is?
It's unexplainably important is what I would say. For me, what made, like I said, the biggest difference was the fact that I had key mentors at an early point in my life. I always mention my mother because she was there for me for that. Whenever I had a question, whatever it was about, she was going to answer it, not just to the best of her abilities, but with the word of God. And it wasn't just, don't do this because I said so. This is what God's word says.
You still can make a choice.
Yes.
But what would be better?
Yes. And she would also share her experiences from her youth. A lot. Too much. But it stays. Because here's the thing. I was going to say kids are listening, but young people are listening. We are listening. We genuinely want to know. We desire that. We understand that we don't know everything. Even if we don't, the way that we present ourselves many times, it looks like we feel like we know everything. But deep down, every young person is aware that there are things that they need to learn. So having that early on for me was key. And moving on to later in my life, mentors such as the first chance I was given to be director for youth programs in general. The team that I was given was amazing. I was there, but I was there learning. I was director. I was learning. This was my first experience ever. And the guy that was our elder, he had been a previous youth director a couple years back. His wife, she is a genius. I love this woman. Extremely shy. Doesn't talk a lot. You're not going to see her up in the front. But everything that's running in the back, she taught me anything and everything that I know about running a V system, right?
Wow.
If we have an issue and I don't know how to solve it, we're running to her. And that ingenuity and bringing those ideas and
giving you the chance to learn, the opportunity to learn.
Yes. It was just whenever, because me again, saying my personality, I'm more of an organizer. So I might have a bit of an issue bringing new ideas, but I love that about young people, right? They're like that. So
it's good that you have your awareness of that. So I like to control things, which is not a bad thing. I like to have it control. I like to have it organized. I know I need to allow new things to come in. So being aware of that brings you the people that you need.
Yes.
But sometimes it irritates. It takes a little time for you to catch on. I know this because that's me. It irritates. It takes a little time. But then you realize, nope, I need this. Let me ask a two-part question. To the young person who is struggling because they didn't find the church that you found. They didn't find the mentors that you found. What advice do you give this young person who wants to be in church, wants to participate, but is not finding these opportunities?
First, I would open with a question. Is there anybody younger than them in the church? Because if there is, you need to get involved with them.
Mentor to them.
Yes.
If the older people that is not giving you a chance, do it yourself.
Yes, and it's going to feel like, what am I supposed to do? Nobody's ever taught me. Yeah, exactly. Turns out the majority of old people that are in the church were also not taught. They don't know. Go for it.
I think, which is the second part of my question, but I think I'm going to give the answer already. It would take us leaders to start teaching the members of the church. That's actually one of my projects as a young adult director for the conference, is to train churches on to do exactly that. Because you're right, a lot of the older people, they want to do it, but they don't know how. So helping, training the members of the church, the older generation, how to work with, how to talk with the younger people. But I like what you said, because what you said is, if they're not giving opportunity, make the opportunity. Make yourself available for these younger people. Take the initiative. Go after. Call me. Let's learn. Take the initiative to learn, to be able to do that. I like that. And
something that I would add, which I've also learned from our local church experience, get outside of your local church.
True.
I don't know how whoever's watching their church might be set up differently, but the church we're set up, we have conferences. We have districts first, and then we have the conference level. And something that's made an amazing impact on my life. And every time I get the chance and I give thanks to God, I give thanks to God for Christian friendships. But this last year and a half has been wild.
It's a very good thing, yes.
It's been wild for me. My social circle has blown up by 200%. Not exaggerating.
Which is very nice.
Yeah. Again, you might not be getting what you feel like you need locally, but always remember that you are part of a global church. God's church is everywhere. There are young people out there, and this is something that I had to learn, and I'm still learning. There are other young people out there who are going through the same struggles as you are. There are other young people out there who are thirsting for the Lord. There are other young people out there who want to know more. And you have the opportunity to find them. You can have your home base. That doesn't need to be where you stay. Our current youth director has been amazing about that. His life has been very interesting. So he knows a lot of people from all the churches around here, right? And he started talking to me about people he knew. And I'm like, wow, that sounds fun. I've been stuck in my church for 7 years. And like, we don't go anywhere. We don't do anything. And I
reach out.
I love the people in my church. Don't misunderstand me. They are amazing. And they're my people. But being able to go out of my people.
Reach out to other young people.
Yes.
And even, I would add, even young people that are not in churches.
Because here's one of those things. And young people tend to understand it a little easier than older people. Let me say it in Jesus' words. Yes, healed people do not need a doctor. Okay? It's not our job as Christians to be fed all the time. It is to be salt unto the world.
Yes, to feed others. We need
to get out there and take the word of God. If you have Jesus in your heart, you existence, you being there has to shine. Yes. You are a light. That's what Jesus said. You are a light. It's not you can be a light, you are. So we need to get out there, make friends out there. And that is so important.
Yeah.
How are you expecting to bring more people to Christ if all the people you associate with already
know Christ? I know that the biggest fears that parents have sometimes is, oh, if I let my child be friends with somebody that is not a Christian, what if their lifestyle affects my child? And that is a valid point. It's a very valid point. I would say to that young person that they need to know themselves. If those are their temptations and they know that may be a trap, they need to find people that strengthen them not to fall into that trap. honest, like being honest. You had a face before, you had a mask on before, but you knew yourself and you knew that your temptations. Maybe you shouldn't be around your temptations, but once you know yourself, you feel solid. You know what you believe. We need to do God's mission, which is outside.
Yeah.
Daniel, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time, coming here, and allowing me and us to get to know you a little better. And thank you.
Thank you for having me.